The University of Illinois Division of Public Safety keeps a couple of officers on staff with a good sense of spotting trouble. 20 years ago, the department launched the Canine Explosives Detection Unit. On this episode, we'll learn more about that unit and the canines making U of I a more secure and safe campus. Stay with us.
It's almost impossible to imagine life without internet today. It keeps us connected to work, school, and loved ones, no matter where they are. Fidium Fiber Internet now serves over 1 million locations, providing reliable, consistent service that keeps these connections strong. From vibrant cities to quiet rural areas, fiber broadband is a key driver of economic growth. Fidium is dedicated to supporting communities and enhancing lives through this essential technology. Learn more at fidiumfiber.com.
At Tender Touch Grooming, we groom dogs of all sizes and breeds tenderly. Our team pampers your furry friend with care because every pet deserves a tender touch. Appointments are available via text at 217-317-9489.
The Paw Report on WEIU is supported by Rural King, America's farm and home store, livestock feed, farm equipment, pet supplies, and more. You can find your store and more information regarding Rural King at ruralking.com.
Dave's Decorating Center is a proud supporter of the Paw Report on WEIU. Dave's Decorating Center features the Mohawk Smart Strand Silk Forever Clean Carpet. Dave's Decorating Center, authorized Mohawk Color Center in Charleston.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Paw Report. We have two special guests in studio today, and it's always best when we have paws in the house, and that's exactly what we do. And joining us from the University of Illinois Department of the Division of Public Safety is Officer Daniel Leake and his officer companion, Dusty. Thanks so much for joining us for the Paw Report today.
Thank you guys for having us.
Dusty is very active.
He is. He wants to go look for bombs.
He does want to go look for bombs, and that's why you are here on the Paw Report. We are talking today about the Explosive Detection Unit at the University of Illinois Division of Public Safety. For those of us like me that didn't know that that was even a thing, tell us about the department and how long it's been active.
Sure. So we've had explosives dogs for about 20 years now. Back when it started, they realized we kind of had a gap in our safety protocol. So we obviously have plenty of staffing for these large events that we have, but they realized if something did happen and all the people are already there, we're kind of out of luck. So they wanted to be a little more proactive at preventing something like that. So we got our first dog, Officer Troy Chu, got his canine Nala about 20 years ago, and he's now on his second dog, Zuri, who just had her, I believe, 11th birthday, so happy birthday to Zuri. And then Officer Darren Lewis has his canine Corey, and that's his second dog. He had canine Bane before that. And then this is my first one here, this is Dusty.
Well, let's introduce you. Whoa, whoop, whoop, whoop. I think he didn't get the mic. Let's introduce us to Dusty. How long have you had Dusty, his breed, how exactly you were paired with Dusty? Did you always know that you wanted to be paired with a canine officer?
I always wanted to be a dog handler. I didn't know which dog I was going to get. So Dusty, he just turned 2 years old, and he is a German wire-haired pointer. He is from Croatia originally. And the way they're paired is pretty cool. So we get all of our dogs from a kennel in Pennsylvania. They're called Shallow Creek Kennels. And the owner there actually travels to Europe. I think it's about once a month or once every 6 weeks, and hand selects all the dogs. And then he comes back and then sells them out to police departments around the country. So Dusty came from Shallow Creek Kennels, and he was trained at Midwest Professional Canine Services in Tilton, Illinois. The owner there used to be a canine handler in Danville, and now he runs that service there. So they do a really, really good job. So the owner of MidPro Canine, Tony, he went out to Shallow Creek Kennels, and you smell that ball in there, don't you? He went to Shallow Creek Kennels and hand-selected a dog, and I ended up with Dusty, and that's how he got here.
Does his breed, the German wired hair pointer, play an important role in his position on the department and in the unit?
Yeah, the breeds can. So they typically pick sporting dogs, so dogs that are really high energy, really high drive. So when I say drive, we're talking about basically his motivations. So what does he want to do really, really bad? So when you're looking for a dog that's searching for things, whether it's missing people or explosives or narcotics, whatever it may be, you want a dog that has really, really high hunt drive. So they want to go search for things all the time. So these dogs are typically used as hunting dogs. You see them used for that a lot, to go find game. But you can train him to go find whatever you want. So he's trained to find explosives, and he loves searching. As you can tell, he wants to go look around right now. So.
Yeah, when he came in the building, he was really ready to work.
Ready to work, yeah.
Are you also looking for a dog with good personality? We do interview a lot of therapy dogs on this program. He is not a therapy dog, but when you want a dog in this position, do they need to have a good personality too, or because they're around people a lot?
Especially ours, because typically when we're running them for sweeps for basketball or football, whatever it may be, even though we do it before the crowds get there, there's still lots of staff members, people setting up, so they're around lots and lots of people all the time. And then if we have them out on campus, they're around a lot of students all the time. So he, as you can tell, very, very friendly, loves being around people. For the most part, he just kind of ignores people, because he realizes you don't give him the treats, I give him the treats. So he has to find his bomb to get his reward, and that's what he's doing most of the time. So.
Well, speaking of that, let's talk about his skills. What is he trained to? He's trained to love, obviously. But let's talk about, is it chemicals? Is it explosives? Is it a mixture of both? Could it be a suspect that's in a building? Is he called in for that as well?
So he will do tracking of people. He's not trained to do apprehension, so he won't bite anybody. But he can track people. His main job is explosives, though, so he is trained. It's kind of a combination of everything you just said. So the original training starts out with, we have live explosives that we use that they're trained on. So he smells those combination of chemicals. It's kind of what we call a scent picture. So a good way to describe it, whenever we're handling the bombs that we use for them to find, we always have gloves on. So we always wear latex gloves. Well, I started realizing, this stuff probably smells like latex gloves too. So I started using latex gloves as a distractor. So when he found that, I wouldn't reward him. So he knows, okay, I'm not looking for the gloves, I'm looking for that specific chemical smell that's in that bomb. So he's trained on it's about 5 different types of explosives, and then that gives him the ability to smell, like, I think about 19,000 different explosive combinations, because the same types of chemicals are used in all these different bombs. So you train them on a couple of the main families, and then if you go look up all these bombs, it's almost all the same chemicals for all this different stuff. So,
well, let's talk about all of the certifications that the two of you have, and it's quite extensive. And what does the training look like specifically, not just for you, the human officer handler, but also for Dusty?
Yeah, so me and Dusty went through a 5-week training school at Mid-Pro Canine, and that's really just to get a basis. So it's to imprint him on the odors, which is a whole lot of repetition. So it's basically, hide the bomb in the box, find your bomb, sit, you get rewarded. And then you do that over and over and over and over again until he realizes, okay, I'm looking for this odor, and when I find that and I sit, I get rewarded. So we say he's looking for bombs. Really, in his mind, he's just looking for his toy. He just thinks his toy appears whenever he smells these certain odors. So he'll look around, he'll smell it, he'll narrow it down to what we call the source, so the strongest point of that odor, and then he'll sit there and just stare at it until he gets his ball, which just appears in his head. So that's what that looks like. And then as far as certifications, we both went through the North American Police Work Dog Association, which is called NAPWADA certification. We did that right after our training, and then we do it once a year, every year after that. So we'll do that annually, and then we train every day. So every day I go to work, I have the explosives with us, and we always train in between calls. We'll go and have him find stuff. We try to do new new scenarios and new places. We'll do vehicles, we'll do buildings, we'll do open area searches. We'll try and do anything that could be a real live search. So
At the University of Illinois, there are a lot of large buildings, large venues, the football stadium, basketball venue, and that's where he comes into play. That's when he's working. Can you tell us what is a sweep like? I mean, when you go in and you sweep a building, what does that process look like?
yeah, so we pair with our explosive ordnance disposal team, our bomb squad, and we will take the dogs around and we'll basically run them around every nook and cranny of those buildings that we can. And he's really looking for his toy, but anything he smells, he'll sit on it, we'll reward him. And what we'll do is we'll have our bomb techs go around with us and they'll take those live explosives that we talk about. And after we've cleared an area, we know there's nothing there, we'll have them hide something and then they'll go find it. And that basically what that does is just keeps him interested. He goes, oh, when I find this bomb here, I get rewarded for it. If you always run him around buildings all the time and he never gets any rewards because he never finds any bombs, hopefully, these dogs are really, really smart. He's going to start saying, I'm not going to keep looking through here anymore. I never get rewarded for it. Why would I keep doing that? So we try and keep him interested by putting those live finds out. And every time they get there now, if I drive by State Farm Center now, he starts going nuts in the back because he gets real excited. So,
How long does it take? I mean, and are you only sweeping the areas where the public's going to be, or is this absolutely everywhere?
Everywhere we can get to. So any place where, we'll sweep all the trucks that bring food in and out for the teams before they go in. We sweep all the tunnels, any places where something could be hidden typically. So we have 3 dogs now. It takes us about an hour and a half or 2 hours to do something like State Farm Center. Smaller venue, we can do it a little bit quicker depending on how many dogs we have. So
We're recording this episode in June, but back in March, there was an investigation at Mumford Hall that there was some suspicious item package that was found there. Was that something that you and Dusty were called in for? And take us through that investigation. What happened? I mean, I'm sure the adrenaline is, is pumping for something like that.
Our patrol units were doing a routine building check at that building, so they were just walking around checking it. Someone actually flagged them down and said, hey, there's a package by this door. I never see packages delivered by this door. I thought it was kind of odd, which we really appreciated someone even noticing that. A lot of people would just walk by and not say anything. So he actually flagged us down and said, hey, this is weird. Can you guys check it out? So they called me over because I was already working. And we took Dusty in and we started walking through the building. I try not to run him directly up to stuff because, again, these dogs are smart. If he walks up and sees a single package in the middle of an empty hallway, he may be like, hey, maybe I'll sit on this and see if I get rewarded for it. So I kind of ran him around the rest of the building and he pulled me right over to this box and sat right on it. I was like, oh, great. This is one of my first suspicious package calls. Again, I've had him since November, so hadn't had him all that long at the time. And he sat on it, and I'm like, well, great. So we called the supervisor, evacuated the building, sent an Illini alert out. While we were going through all that process, the other patrol officers were working on contacting the owner of the package. So it was an Amazon box that had been was being delivered to someone, and we actually got a hold of them, and they told us what it was. And it was something that typically has some of the same chemicals that he's looking for, but it wasn't a bomb. So we still had our bomb tech come out and x-rayed the box and determined that it was nothing nefarious. It was exactly what they said it was, but again, it was one of those things that it probably shared some of those same chemicals, and you also never know where this box came from. So when it was being delivered, it actually had one of those stickers on it that says it has to be transported in certain containers with other types of things. So who knows what it was around. If it touched anything that, has explosive material on it or something, then
this carpet has seen its fair share of the animal kingdom.
He can smell all of it too.
He can smell all of it. Speaking of smells, so he's a super sniffer, and how does that compare to us humans? I mean, what he can smell versus like our olfactory senses. I know it's off the chart.
It's
different.
really, really cool. And I'm no super expert on it at all, but it's really cool some of the stuff they can do. So just the architecture of a dog's nose is completely built to smell well. That's exactly what they're for. So a dog's nose kind of works like our eyes. So the way our eyes form two slightly different pictures of the world, both of their nostrils can smell separately. So they can smell separately with each nostril, and they use that to form basically a 3D image of what's around them. So everything that they experience is done through their nose. They have the ability to breathe air in and out at the same time, which sounds kind of odd, but if anybody that looks at their own dog's nose, they actually have little slits on the sides of their nose where air can go in and then they can go out of the slits of the side of their nose, so they can constantly circulate air, which is way more efficient than us. We can only inhale and exhale. Dogs also have separate, basically a fold that separates air, part of it for breathing and part of it for smelling. So some of the air that goes in their nose is purely for smelling, whereas we use it for both at the same time. They can separate those things. So he has about 300 million olfactory receptors in his nose, where a human, it's about 300 million, where a human has about 5 or 6 million. And then, so those receptor cells basically pick up that odor and then they send it to the brain. And then while their brains are smaller than ours, the part of his brain that's dedicated to smelling is about 40 times larger than ours. So there's lots of different estimates, but people estimate that they're about 10,000 to 100,000 times more powerful than our noses. And again, just if you ever look into it, some of the ways that they can do this stuff is really cool. They can detect tiny concentrations of odor as they go down, so that's how a lot of times they'll track people and what direction they're going, because they can smell those reductions in concentrations of odor. And again, it's really, really awesome, some of the stuff that they're able to do.
You mentioned it a little bit earlier about your typical work day. He goes with you every day, and it is part of training, but can you take us through, I say 9 to 5, I don't mean that, I don't mean that. That's all you work, because I know your hours are strange. That's just a phrase that I'm using, but take us through the day.
Yeah, Dusty and I work second shift, so we go in the evenings, and we're really like any other patrol officer, so we still respond to calls, we still do all that stuff. He's just with me in the back. So we'll try and find time between all those calls to, I'll go put some hides out in a building somewhere, on vehicles, or whatever we're training on that day. And we'll go around and find stuff, and then I'll put them up, and then we'll respond to the next call. So again, it's pretty similar to any other patrol officer. We just have that extra tool with us. A lot of times we're assisting other agencies. If, I've helped the city of Champaign, city of Urbana, if they have suspicious package calls, he'll go run those first before that agency opens them, just to be on the safe side. And I have a lot of my colleagues on shift help me out with like laying tracks or something for him to work on tracking, and so he stays pretty busy.
Does he, when he goes home at night, is he just a dog, or is he still working? Because I've interviewed officers that have therapy dogs, and they're really, like, this is not a pet. This is a working dog, just in a different capacity.
Yeah, so he, at home, he still likes to, we'll go out and play. I don't do any explosives work with him at home. I want him to realize, hey, home is where we can relax a little bit. And even when he's finding bombs, it's still all a game to him. He thinks he's just out looking for his toy, so we call it work. He thinks it's still play. But yeah, at home, we'll run around, we'll do obedience. He'll run around in my backyard all the time. He plays with my lab at home quite a bit. But for the most part, he's just hanging out and relaxing. And
doing that.
And doing this, right?
What's one thing you can tell us about a bomb sniffing dog that most of us don't know? Now, when you mention how many smell cells that they have in their nose compared to a human, that's pretty amazing. But is there any other interesting nugget that you can tell us about?
Yeah, some of the stuff that I thought was really cool when I was going through this whole process was, and it really applies to lots of dogs, not just bomb dogs themselves, but just how good their noses are. So some of the cool facts I saw was they can smell up to 40 feet underground, which I thought was interesting. They can detect a half teaspoon of sugar in an Olympic-sized pool, which is pretty crazy. And then they can smell like a spritz of perfume in a football stadium. Is some of the research that they've done is how sensitive that their noses are. So I thought some of that stuff is just,
it's cool.
It kind of puts it in perspective how much better they are than we are.
What about a memorable story? Dusty is quite the character, so I'm sure you've got, I don't know, maybe a personal funny story, or maybe it's a serious work-related story that you can share about him.
I'll tell this one. It's memorable mainly because it's embarrassing for me. Hopefully it's been long enough I don't get yelled at for it now. You okay there, dude? So I'll preface this with, in training, one of the things that they preach is having a loose leash. And the reason for that is, say he does smell something and he wants to go over there to check on it, and it's a bomb, and I pull on him or something, and he goes, oh, okay, I'm not supposed to go look for that. Well, now you've kind of trained your dog to not go do what he's supposed to do. So they preach loose leash, let your dog do the work. So at the very, very first sweep of a men's basketball game that Dusty and I did at the State Farm Center, this is the very first time he's ever done this, we had just finished the sweep, and we're down in the tunnel where all the teams run. People can probably see down on the court. And the women were out practicing before the men's game. The women were out shooting around. And Dusty had been in the State Farm Center before for training, but very limited exposure in there with as busy as they are and everything. So he hadn't seen a whole lot of people in there. And I'm in my head going, you know, don't mess this up, loose leash, loose leash. And Dusty saw the women bouncing their basketballs and shooting around out there and just books it out of the tunnel, pulls the leash right out of my hand, runs out on the court. He's running all over the court, and the women are out there going, what is going on?
Yeah.
Why is there a dog running around the basketball court right now? And I'm like, oh my God, this is the first game, and my dog's already out running around on the court. And he's, of course, smiling and having the time of his life.
Of
and I'm
course.
like, oh my gosh. So anyway, we got him back, and now he's a little bit better about coming back now, aren't you?
So, you know, you probably have relationships with other departments, whether it be city departments or university police departments. You know, maybe there's a department out there that doesn't have the resource like an explosive detection unit. What can you say to those departments that are maybe considering it, or, you know, how useful do you think a tool like Dusty is?
You're not going to realize how badly you needed it until you've missed something and it's already too late. So we always push people. There's no machine, there's no human, there's nothing that compares to what they're able to do. So if you don't have it, you have a big gap in your safety protocols. So we recommend it. Obviously, we love it. They do a great job. It's fun for us. It's fun for him to meet people and do things like this too. So, but again, there's nothing that can do what they do. So,
what is your favorite aspect? I mean, obviously, he's a cool dog, and, you know, he's very connected to you. But what is your favorite aspect about working with him every day?
I'd say just having your best buddy in the back seat all the time is awesome. You know, anytime I can slide the divider between the front seat and the back seat, and he'll poke his head up, and my best bud's with me. So that's always fun. I think watching him work is really cool. So we use a term, we say in odor. So their behavior changes when they get in odor. They start to smell something, and I love watching him. He'll run by, and when you can tell when he's run by something, because his head will whip back, and he'll run back over to where it was, and he'll start, you know, you can see the wheels in his head turn and trying to narrow down to get as close as he can to this explosive. So watching him do that and watching him think through the problem. Say he's on the wrong side of a car and the odor's blowing under the car and he can smell it, but he knows he's not in the right spot. Watching him work around to the other side of the car and get close to it and find it and then get rewarded is a really, really cool process to watch.
Is he an individual worker, or does he work with the other canines in the unit? Is he more like, I'm not worried about the other dogs, I want to do my own thing?
They typically are pretty independent. We don't really want them interacting a whole lot with the dogs, just because we don't want them to see a dog when they're supposed to be working and want to take off after that dog. So for the most part, you know, they're not aggressive or anything, but they just kind of ignore them. Again, the most important thing in his mind is I got to find this odor and I got to get my ball. If I find this odor, I get my ball, and that's pretty much all he's thinking about most of the time.
Other community outreach events that the two of you get to do? Do you get to go to schools or anything like that to share your story and share his work with the younger?
Yeah, we
younger
actually,
audience?
it's funny you asked that. Dusty and I are actually going to a preschool tomorrow to visit with them. They asked me to go. They said it was Heroes Week at their preschool, so we're actually going tomorrow to visit them over in Urbana. So he's looking forward to that too.
I'd say you two are heroes, aren't you, Dusty? Hey, I really appreciate you making the trip to Charleston to visit us and sniff around and bring Officer Daniel Leake with you. your handler. Thank you very much. Well, we appreciate learning more about your unit and Dusty and what he does. And sincerely, we do appreciate you making the trip to Charleston to share your story and all about his work in the unit.
Of course. Well, thank you guys for having us. We appreciate it.
Come back again sometime, okay? Maybe you can bring one of your other buddies. Well, thank you, the viewers of the Paw Report, for joining us for this episode. Again, we'd like to thank Officer Daniel Leake and Dusty for joining us here on set. Until next time, we'll see you then.
Dave's Decorating Center is a proud supporter of the Paw Report on WEIU. Dave's Decorating Center features the Mohawk Smart Strand Silk Forever Clean Carpet. Dave's Decorating Center, authorized Mohawk Color Center in Charleston.
The Paw Report on WEIU is supported by Rural King, America's farm and home store, livestock feed, farm equipment, pet supplies, and more. You can find your store and more information regarding Rural King at ruralking.com.
At Tender Touch Grooming, we groom dogs of all sizes and breeds tenderly. Our team pampers your furry friend with care because every pet deserves a tender touch. Appointments are available via text at 217-317-9489.
It's almost impossible to imagine life without internet today. It keeps us connected to work, school, and loved ones, no matter where they are. Fidium Fiber Internet now serves over 1 million locations, providing reliable, consistent service that keeps these connections strong. From vibrant cities to quiet rural areas, fiber broadband is a key driver of economic growth. Fidium is dedicated to supporting communities and enhancing lives through this essential technology. Learn more at fidiumfiber.com.